Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. So, Naruto asked, sidestepping Sasuke's punch with practiced ease. Did you tell her yet? Sasuke grunted, flipping backward to avoid Naruto's sweeping kick. What do you think? Naruto landed in a crouch and straightened with a frown. Maybe you should try copying Hinata and me. You've got that fancy Sharingan, just watch and learn. Sasuke's glare sharpened. Typical. This idiot made it sound like opening your heart was as easy as throwing a kunai. Naruto had always been good at that, wearing his emotions on his sleeve like it cost him nothing. Sasuke, on the other hand, had grown up learning to lock everything away. Emotions had no place in a world where his entire clan was massacred. He had learned to survive by becoming a weapon, not a person. People hadn't cared about his pain, they'd looked at him with hollow pity, and he hated it. Except for Naruto. Naruto had never pitied him. He saw him as an equal. A rival. And somehow, that made all the difference. Are you sure that's a wise decision? Sai chimed in, standing beside Konohamaru, who was practically bouncing in anticipation for his turn to spar with the future Hokage. Why would Sasuke observe your intercourse? Naruto froze and blinked at Sai in disbelief. What the hell, Sai? It was all the opening Sasuke needed. His fist cracked against Naruto's jaw, but it was a shadow clone. It vanished in a puff of smoke as soon as contact was made. I wasn't even talking about sex. Naruto called from a branch above, rubbing his chin as he swung his legs lazily. I just think the team could use a visual of how married life works. You know, communication, teamwork, the whole domestic thing. Sasuke responded with a flick of his wrist, shuriken flying. Naruto caught them without missing a beat and sent them right back. Sasuke dodged with ease, he'd been through this song and dance before. Like hell he was going to sit through another cringe fest like the Shikamaru Temari dinner disaster. Seeing Shikamaru resting his hand on Temari's pregnant belly had done something strange to his chest. Something tight. Something he didn't want to name. He wanted that. To come home to Sakura. To see her carrying his child. To rebuild what had been taken from him. No thanks, Sasuke muttered. Kakashi tried that yesterday. Switch with me, Konohamaru called, bouncing in place. I wanna take a shot at the old man. Sasuke wordlessly walked off the field and dropped beside Sai in the shade, leaning his back against the base of a wide oak. His eyes followed the match, but his mind was elsewhere. Watching others live the life he wanted was pure torture. Tried, Sai repeated, arms folded neatly. It was a disaster, Sasuke muttered. The memory burned, how jealousy had twisted his gut at even the smallest affectionate gestures. Then perhaps, Sai said thoughtfully, you'd benefit from observing a true proposal tonight. Sasuke turned his head slightly. Even Naruto paused, lowering his guard as Konohamaru charged. You're proposing tonight? Naruto asked, eyebrows raised. Sai beamed, unnervingly cheerful. Sexually as well. He let out a pleased sigh. Sakura-san encouraged me to have coitus with Ino last night, but I abstained. I wanted tonight to be meaningful. Sasuke flinched. Of course, Sai was proposing to Ino. And, of course, Sakura had helped him. Why wouldn't she? She helped everyone. Meanwhile, Sasuke was just trying not to mess up whatever fragile thing he and Sakura had going on. Sure, they shared a bed now, but only because she had nightmares. Not because she wanted him there. At least, that's what he told himself. Tonight's the night, comrades, Sai continued dreamily. Team 8's a training grounds. Under the moonlight. Sasuke's jaw clenched. Not interested. I need Sakura's help, too, Sai added as an afterthought. She'll be there. Sasuke suddenly found the whole event much more interesting. Need help setting up? Konohamaru offered as he caught his breath. No, no, Sai waved him off. All I need to woo her are the moon and the stars. Sasuke glanced sideways at Sai, a bit impressed despite himself. When did he become a poet? How exactly does Sakura play into this? Sasuke asked, voice carefully neutral. Sai grinned. You'll see. Kurenai watched Sakura over the rim of her teacup, amusement glittering in her ruby eyes. The younger woman had no idea she already possessed every weapon she needed in her arsenal, she just didn't know how to wield them properly. When Sakura had shown up on her doorstep just after sunrise, Kurenai had been mildly surprised. But the moment the pink-haired kunoichi dropped into a deep bow and asked for help, she'd known exactly what this was about. You came to me for seduction lessons, Kurenai said, her tone playful and laced with intrigue. She crossed her legs slowly, letting one foot rotate in idle circles, a subtle movement that commanded attention. Hi, Sakura replied a little too quickly. I'm sure you've heard about my situation. Kurenai slid her fingers through her dark hair, deliberately revealing the pale line of her neck. Who hadn't heard? Sasuke Uchiha was straight. That bombshell alone had sent shockwaves through the village's gossip circuit. But more than that, everyone knew what it meant, for the village, for the Uchiha legacy. The clan's restoration wasn't just a personal matter. It was political, powerful, and long overdue. I see, Kurenai mused. And what is it, exactly, that you think I can do for you? She let her painted nails rest elegantly atop her knees. You're dealing with Uchiha Sasuke. Not exactly known for being pliable. Sakura swallowed hard. Why was it suddenly so warm in here? I need you to teach me your tricks, she said. All of them. Kurenai leaned back and stretched her arms, her posture fluid and languid, exposing the defined muscles of her arms. It's been a while, she sighed, then gave Sakura a smirk. But since I'm amused, I'll help. Sakura's eyes lit up. For once, she wouldn't be stumbling blindly. She had a master strategist on her side. But my question is, Kurenai said, her voice suddenly sharp as a kunai, why seduce him? He already wants to sleep with you. Sakura's fingers curled around the hem of her skirt. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Because I need him to love me. Now that was interesting. He doesn't. I don't know. I won't rebuild the Uchiha clan unless he truly falls for me. Her thoughts added silently, or until my 3 months are up. That is quite the problem, Kurenai agreed, her gaze softening. She thought of Mirai at school, of Asuma, of the love that had made creating their daughter feel like a sacred bond, not a mission. You're approaching this the right way, Kurenai said at last. He wants sex. You want love. Sakura gave a small, sad smile. Her green eyes shimmered with vulnerability. I know it's probably impossible. Kurenai sipped her water and ran her tongue slowly along her bottom lip. Do you know why the village uses seduction missions, Sakura? To gather intel, assassinate, gain leverage, or a keke genkai the village wants. Kurenai shook her head. No. Why seduction? Sakura blinked. She didn't have an answer. Because love is universal, Kurenai said. It's a soft target on every human heart. When an alluring woman walks into a lonely man's life and gives him a taste of what he's been missing, do you really think even someone like Sasuke can ignore that? Sakura crossed her legs and gave a small nod. I see. Yes, Kurenai confirmed. Then her gaze narrowed with curiosity. But I do wonder, why you? Of all the women he could have chosen to rebuild the clan with, why did Sasuke choose you? He could have chosen someone else. Someone who wouldn't have rejected him at first. Someone easier. And yet here you are, under his roof, sharing time, sharing space. I'm guessing, from your posture, you're also sharing a bed. And not sexually. Sakura burst out, cheeks flushed. Of course, Kurenai waved it off. You're too smart to give him that right now. Sakura gave a sly smile. Kurenai was good, too good. Maybe she should have come here sooner. Think deeper, Kurenai continued. You two share a long, messy history. Former teammates. He tried to kill you, more than once, and yet you still chased after him. Still loved him. Sakura looked away. Yes, she still loved him. If she didn't, she wouldn't be here trying to convince him to love her back. She'd be halfway to Suna, maybe. Far away from this mission, and from Naruto's heartbreaking plea. Sasuke knows that you are the only person who would endure this, Kurenai said softly, who would try. He's not stupid, Sakura. He didn't choose you by accident. That's your leverage. Your power. She leaned forward. No matter how cold he acts, he won't walk away from you. Sakura furrowed her brows. But he's done it before. He discards people like broken kunai. I've seen him do it. Hell, I've lived it. If he didn't need you, Kurenai said firmly, you wouldn't be sleeping beside him at night. Sakura bit her lower lip. And if this doesn't work? She asked quietly. Kurenai sat straighter, her expression resolute. You are Tsunade's heir. And now, you're my student. This will work. Sakura nodded slowly. She could do this. She had to treat it like any other mission. Observe. Plan. Strike. Now, Kurenai said smoothly, tell me what I've been doing since you walked in. Sakura blinked, then realization lit her face. Your foot, she said. You've been rotating it, drawing attention to your legs. And when you played with your hair, you exposed your neck. Kurenai smirked. Go on. Your facial expressions are calculated. You've been giving me looks of desire. Exactly, Kurenai said. There is a universal language for attraction. Watch. She held Sakura's gaze, tilted her head down slightly, then to the side, a coy smile blooming on her lips before she abruptly broke eye contact. Sakura stared, caught in the spell. She leaned back, exhaling. I see. These are just the basics, Kurenai said, lips curving into a wicked grin. And I'll teach you everything I taught Hinata. These are the techniques that won Naruto's heart. Sakura's eyes gleamed. That was very encouraging. Without hesitation, she slid to the floor, pressing her forehead to the ground in a perfect bow. Please, sensei, she said fiercely. Then she lifted her head, fire blazing in her eyes. Teach me. Kurenai smiled, the proud smile of a woman about to shape another into a weapon of irresistible grace. Let's begin. Sasuke's seriously making me worry, Naruto muttered, rubbing a hand through his unruly blonde hair before letting his forehead drop heavily onto the desk. The mountain of paperwork didn't help his mood, but it was the emotional chaos between his teammates that truly weighed on him. From behind, warm hands slid gently over his shoulders, beginning a soothing massage. The scent of jasmine and lavender drifted in the air, unmistakably Hinata. She always seemed to know when he needed her the most. You're overthinking again, she murmured with a soft smile, her thumbs pressing into a tense knot just beneath his shoulder blade. What's bothering you this time? Naruto groaned, half from relief, half from frustration. Sasuke. He's trying, I think. But he's awful at showing it. And Sakura, man, she deserves more than just cryptic grunts and half glances. Hinata leaned in, her lips brushing the shell of his ear. She's strong. She'll know what to do. Naruto shivered at the feel of her breath. Don't distract me, Hinata. She hummed, not backing off in the slightest. You've been working so hard, Naruto-kun, she whispered, letting her fingers trail down from his shoulders to his chest. Let me take care of you, just for a little while. His breath hitched as she slowly spun his chair to face her. Her lavender gaze held mischief now, and that signature shyness of hers was replaced by something bolder, fiercer, intoxicating. Hinata knelt in front of him, her hands gliding up his thighs with a feather-light touch. You know, as your wife, it's both my duty and my pleasure to ease your worries. Naruto swallowed hard, his thoughts momentarily scattered. Why you really know how to mess with my concentration. She leaned forward, pressing a gentle kiss to his knee before looking up at him with a playful tilt of her head. I also happen to know something important. Something that could help Sasuke-kun and Sakura-chan. That snapped him back. Wait, what do you mean? What did you do? Hinata smiled sweetly, slowly pulling down the zipper of his jacket. Let's just say I gave Sasuke a little nudge. Something meaningful. Something Sakura won't be able to ignore. Naruto narrowed his eyes, half curious, half flustered as her fingers brushed his skin. Hinata, what did you give him? She leaned in close, her voice like silk. A secret, Naruto-kun. He blinked. Huh, that's not fair. Since when do we keep secrets? Hinata laughed, low and lovely. Since I started enjoying how frustrated you get when I tease you. I'm not the only one getting frustrated here, he muttered, tugging her up into his lap. Their foreheads touched, breaths mingling, heartbeats sinking in that quiet way only soulmates could manage. You always pull me back when I'm spiraling, he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I don't know what I'd do without you. She smiled, genuine and soft, her fingertips stroking along his cheek. You'd still find your way. But I'll always be here to help you remember. Even if you keep secrets from me. Hinata laughed again, pressing a kiss to the corner of his mouth. Even then. But maybe. I'll tell you later. Naruto held her tighter, his worries slowly melting under her touch. Even in the middle of chaos, with his friends at odds and the weight of the village on his shoulders, she was his constant. His grounding force. And maybe, just maybe, she was right. Sasuke had a heart, he just needed to figure out how to use it. Uchiha Sasuke felt awkward. And that was rare for him, especially in his own home. Most evenings, he would sprawl on the couch, leafing through police reports or investigative files brought home from the station. The place was quiet, predictable, solitary. That was the norm for him. Ever since returning to Konoha, solitude had been his closest companion. So imagine his surprise when he came home to find Haruno Sakura sitting on the other end of his couch, her legs tucked comfortably beneath her, going over hospital reports. And not just sitting, lounging. Like she owned the place. Their feet were both propped up on the coffee table, and Sasuke found himself increasingly aware of the fact that her delicate toes were nearly brushing against his. It was ridiculous how aware he was of it. He stole a glance her way. Something was different. Yes, her skirt was slightly hiked up, too much leg for a casual visit. And yes, her shirt looked like it was one exhale away from betraying her bra. But it wasn't just that. It was something deeper, subtler. He flicked his gaze from the report in his lap to her again. Her posture was relaxed, back pressed against the armrest in a way that arched her chest upward. Her shirt clung to her curves, the low collar offering just enough temptation to be maddening. He coughed. She glanced up, catching his eyes. Sasuke froze. Sakura's gaze, smoldering, almost curious, lingered for a moment before she blushed and turned away, tucking a strand of pink hair behind her ear. He could hear his own heartbeat. Yeah, something was definitely different. What Sasuke didn't know was that Sakura had spent her morning getting seduction advice from none other than Kurenai-sensei. Don't overwhelm him, Kurenai had said with a knowing smile. Temptation is most powerful when it's slow and subtle. Let him think he's the one closing the distance. So Sakura held back. No dramatic confessions. No lingering touches. Just strategic positioning. Just a peek here, a brush there. Everything designed to make Sasuke want to move. To reach. To feel. It was like shogi. A game of patience, of planning. And Sakura was determined to win. She adjusted her position on the couch slightly, arching her back and shifting just enough to press her toes deliberately against Sasuke's. A small, satisfied grin played at her lips when he jolted. Sasuke stiffened. Heat traveled up from his toes like a jolt of electricity. Did she know what she was doing? Judging by the way she didn't even react, she had no idea. His pride stung at that thought. She touched him, casually, intimately, and she didn't even notice. Sasuke exhaled slowly. Remember what Naruto said. You have to show her she's not just someone to rebuild the clan with. She needs to know she matters. He clenched his jaw. But before he could work through the chaos in his chest, Her folder of papers slipped from her lap and scattered on the floor, right in front of him. Sakura leaned forward, but Sasuke was already moving, dropping to his knees and collecting the papers quickly, stacking them with meticulous care. He sat back down and held them out to her. Kurenai's voice echoed in Sakura's mind again, reward his actions. Positive reinforcement. Sakura leaned closer than necessary. Their knees brushed. She reached for the papers, letting her nails lightly graze his hand, her eyes locking onto his with gentle intensity. Arigato, Sasuke, she said softly, like it was their little secret. Sasuke didn't answer. Couldn't answer. He let go of the papers and stared as she backed away, reclined again on the couch, and, once again, let her toes find his. He didn't even pretend to look at his report this time. His eyes stayed glued to her, the pounding in his chest impossible to ignore. Was this what Naruto meant by that unbreakable bond between a man and a woman? How the hell was he supposed to express feelings he didn't even fully understand? One second he was ice, composed, unreadable. The next he was burning up like someone had tossed him into a volcano. Ah, you two lovebirds. Sasuke flinched. He didn't need to look up to recognize that annoying voice. Sai stood in the living room, his usual fake smile in place. Sasuke immediately felt a headache blooming behind his eyes. Don't you ever knock, he muttered, dropping the report on the coffee table. What is it, Sai? Sakura asked, polite but clearly distracted. I need your help, Sai said, his tone uncharacteristically soft. I want you to bring Ino to the old training grounds. 9 o'clock. Sakura blinked. Is this about your proposal? Sai nodded. Sakura gave a slow smile. I'll invite her to the bathhouse with Hinata and me. We'll bring her. You're a saint, Sai replied sweetly. I knew I could count on you, ugly. Sakura's smile twitched dangerously. Call me that again, and I'll rearrange your face. With that, she grabbed her phone and walked out of the room. Sai turned to Sasuke, grinning. You look distressed, traitor. Sasuke scowled. She's acting differently. Sai tilted his head. Well, things do get awkward after a failed proposal. That's not what I meant. Sasuke paused. She touched me. Sai's eyebrow lifted. And Sasuke sighed. She's making me feel things I don't understand. For once, Sai's smile faltered into something real. She's making you feel. Their eyes met. Two men who had long struggled with human connection, now caught in love's strange, clumsy crossfire. Sai pulled in a breath. Let me give you some advice. Don't fight it. He chuckled. This is one war you're going to lose. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. TCH. Sai looked away, voice turning somber. I fought Ino for years. Though love made you weak. That it was something to fear. But I was wrong. Love isn't weakness, it's the strongest force in the world. He looked back at Sasuke, serious now. Stronger than hatred. That word, hatred, made Sasuke flinch. He'd lived so much of his life wrapped in it. Let it define him. But now he wondered if Naruto had always been right. Maybe it was love, Naruto's love, Sakura's love, that had brought him back. Sai smiled again, that odd lightness returning. But hey, what do I know? In 6 hours, I'll either be engaged or getting slapped in the face. Sasuke grunted. Idiot. Sai laughed as he headed out. We all are, Sasuke. That's what love does to us. Left alone in the silence, Sasuke looked at the spot where Sakura had sat, the memory of her warm toes against his lingering like a spark beneath his skin. Maybe it was time to stop pretending he wasn't already burning. Why are we going this way? Ino asked suspiciously, arching a brow. What are you two up to? Sakura and Hinata both froze mid-step. A single bead of sweat rolled down each of their temples. Despite their best efforts to keep things smooth and casual, it seemed Ino had picked up on their odd behavior. Her intuition had always been frustratingly sharp. They had just finished soaking at the bathhouse, a plan orchestrated to get Ino relaxed and unsuspecting. Everything had been going according to schedule, except for the part where Ino was clearly onto them. You two have been acting strange since I met up with you, Ino growled, crossing her arms as they continued deeper into the woods. Would you just spit it out already? Hinata gave Sakura a desperate side glance. They had to do something, and fast. Sakura knew Hinata wasn't the best liar, and given the intense scrutiny of Ino's stare, she was about to crack like an egg on a kunai. Hinata's cheeks turned red as she fidgeted with her sleeve. Lying didn't come naturally to her. She could barely keep a secret from Naruto earlier that day, especially after his not-so-subtle attempts to get her to confess what she'd given Sasuke. She could still feel the heat rising in her face from that discussion. Sakura sighed, pretending to look defeated. Hinata, we might as well tell her. What? Hinata squeaked, eyes going wide. Sakura, we can't. It'll ruin the surprise. But Sakura shook her head solemnly, like a shinobi resigned to her mission's failure. Hinata's stomach dropped. Was this it? Had they really failed such a simple task? She looked down, heart pounding with shame, waiting for Sakura to drop the bomb like ripping off a bandage. What surprise? Ino prodded, eyes gleaming with anticipation. Are you sleeping with Sasuke yet? She teased, bouncing slightly on her toes. Or Hinata, are you pregnant? Pregnant. Hinata nearly yelped, face turning scarlet. Naruto-kun and I have talked about it and we're going to wait until. She was spiraling now. No, I'm not pregnant. Ino pouted. Then what is it? Sakura drew a deep breath. This was it. If she had to throw herself under the bus for the sake of the surprise, so be it. She squared her shoulders and met Ino's gaze head on. Your first assumption was right. Her cheeks flushed as she looked deadly serious. I'm sleeping with Uchiha Sasuke. Hinata nearly choked. Her hand flew to her mouth in shock, eyes bulging in disbelief. Ino narrowed her gaze. Lie. Sakura grit her teeth. They were so close. Just a little farther and they'd reach the clearing. Couldn't Ino just wait 5 more minutes? Yeah. Sakura finally admitted. You're right. Ino sighed in relief, tossing her hair over her shoulder. Thank God. For a second, I thought you'd completely lost it. Sakura and Hinata exchanged a glance. They were almost there. Come on, Sakura said casually, pulling back a few leafy branches to reveal a small pathway hidden behind the trees. Let's cut through here. Ino raised a brow but followed without protest. You two are weird, she muttered. And not in the usual way, either. She stepped past the foliage and onto the familiar soft grass of her old training grounds. I mean seriously, forehead girl, she continued with a smirk, did you really think I'd believe you were? She paused. There was silence. She looked around. Sakura, Hinata, she called, glancing over her shoulder. That's when Sai stepped into the moonlight. Gomen, he said gently, emerging from behind a tree. I didn't mean to bring you here under false pretenses. I just. Sai. Ino blinked. What are you doing here? He walked toward her slowly, his expression soft. We've been dating for a few years now, haven't we? Her heart fluttered uneasily. This was off. Where were Sakura and Hinata? They're here, he said, catching her glance. They're just waiting for me to do something first. Ino turned back to him, startled by how close he was. His presence sent warmth spiraling up her chest. It had been days since he'd touched her, held her. Her heart ached. Then, gently, Sai lifted her wrist and pressed a kiss to it. I'm sorry, he whispered, lowering her hand but still holding it tightly. I've been distant. I've neglected your needs. That wasn't my intention. Tears pricked at Ino's eyes. Then why? She asked, voice cracking. Why haven't you touched me? Are you sick of me? His eyes widened. Never. His voice was firm, laced with emotion. I thought, maybe if I kept a distance, it would show I respected you more. That I wasn't just using you. He frowned. But maybe I should have just told you how I felt. Ino gave a soft, watery laugh. Sakura told me. Sai blinked. She did. She nodded. But she didn't say anything about this. Sai smiled, pulling out his notepad. No, he said, flipping to a specific page. This part is just for you. He held up a single sketch, a simple circle. Ino tilted her head. What is that? Touch it, he said softly. Cautiously, she placed her hand on the paper, and gasped as her fingers passed through it, like dipping into water. When she pulled her hand back, the circle was gone. Then she noticed the new weight on her left hand. A ring. Sigh, she whispered. Yamanaka Ino, he said, voice steady and warm, you've made me feel things no book could prepare me for. He kissed her cheek, his own voice trembling now. I know it's tradition for a man to ask a woman, so. Marry me, Ino blurted. Sai blinked. What? But I'm the one proposing. Marry me, she repeated, laughing through her tears. And for the first time in his life, Sai felt tears of his own begin to fall, soft, silent, and uncontainable. I'm so happy for them, Sakura sighed as she slipped under the covers beside Sasuke. Her voice was soft, touched with that wistful kind of joy one only feels when watching a friend fall in love. She curled on her side, resting her head on her hand. He must have worked so hard on the proposal. A small smile tugged at her lips as she tapped her finger to her cheek thoughtfully. It almost sounded normal. Sasuke said nothing. He had watched, like the rest of their friends, as Sai had proposed under the moonlight, awkward and endearing and completely sincere. The happiness from their group had been contagious, Naruto whooping, Hinata clapping, even Shikamaru cracking a smile. But Sasuke hadn't felt joy. What he felt was wrongness. That bitter, twisted knot in his stomach wasn't resentment for Sai, it was resentment at the timing. At himself. At the fact that something so simple had turned impossible between him and the woman lying next to him now. It should have been us. She should have said yes. She should have leapt into his arms and accepted his offer without hesitation. Just last week, he had given her the same chance. He had told her to rebuild the Uchiha clan with him. That was supposed to be enough. But it hadn't been. And it made him angry. Sasuke? Sakura asked softly, her brow creasing as she waved a hand in front of his blank, faraway gaze. Are you okay? Without warning, Sasuke caught her hand, rough, fast, unrelenting, and yanked her toward him. Their faces were just inches apart. He studied her eyes with an intensity that made her breath hitch. Surprise flickered across her face, but she didn't pull away. She blushed, lips parting. Sasuke, what are you doing? His voice was low and cold. Sakura, rebuild the Uchiha clan with me. Her heart stuttered. There it was again. The question, not really a question, spoken like a mission. Like a demand. Her eyes widened, searching his face. Was this why he'd been so distant? Had Sai's proposal stirred something inside him? Had he felt threatened? Possessive? His grip on her wrist tightened. It didn't hurt, not really. But it reminded her of who Sasuke was, strong, sharp, impossible to hold unless he allowed it. She could break away if she wanted. She was a Jonin. He may have been powerful, but she was fast and trained to survive. Escaping Sasuke was always an option. But she didn't want to. She wanted to stay, not as a hostage, but as something more. She wanted to be chosen, wanted, not just needed. To be more than a name on the family scroll. She wanted to be caged by him only if he held the key with love. Then say it, she whispered fiercely. Sasuke's brows drew together. His eyes flared red, the tomo spinning wildly in the dark, casting faint shadows across his cheekbones. But Sakura didn't back down. She stared into the crimson swirl, daring him to meet her where she stood emotionally. You think telling me to rebuild the Uchiha clan is supposed to mean something? Her voice cracked, not from volume but from hurt. Sasuke, nothing's changed. Not in the past week. Not since you came back to Konoha. Her hand trembled in his. We share a bed because I scream myself awake at night. I live with you because I don't have a home anymore. But this, she gestured between them, this isn't something that can be built on duty or obligation. The fire in her eyes softened, flickering out into sorrow. She trailed off, eyes glistening. She shook her head, unable to finish. What was the point of saying it again, when he refused to see? Sasuke, she murmured, leaning in until her lips brushed his, so soft, so fleeting it felt like a memory more than a moment. I love you. He stiffened. It wasn't the first time she'd said it. But each time it came, it cracked open the walls he'd spent so long building. It didn't make sense, how something so gentle could feel like a punch to the chest. And just like that, her lips were gone. His eyes remained wide as he watched her pull away. Her expression didn't waver, even as tears slid silently down her cheeks. She smiled, not from joy, but from resignation. I love you, she repeated, her voice breaking. But she couldn't say it, because if she did, it would make it real. It would force her to admit that love alone wasn't enough. That she needed more. That he had to want her the way Sai had wanted Ino, openly, fully, without fear. She turned away from him. The light clicked off. Sakura pulled the blanket over her shoulder and rolled to the farthest edge of the bed, putting as much space between them as the mattress would allow. Her back faced him like a wall. And he didn't reach for her. Good night, Sasuke-kun, she whispered. But it would be a long, long time before either of them found peace in sleep. Check it out, forehead girl, Ino sneered, flashing the glinting ring in Sakura's face as they sat curled up in the sitting room of the Uchiha manor. Her smile was smug, her tone triumphant. I'm officially engaged. Sakura's lips curled into a bright, genuine smile as she took a sip of the tea she'd brewed. That's amazing, Ino. I'm really happy for you. Ino gave a dreamy sigh and held the ring to her chest like it was sacred. He almost didn't let me get out of bed this morning, she said, waggling her eyebrows. No sex really made him realize what he was missing. I think I've just confirmed I'm irreplaceable. Sakura snorted into her teacup and nudged closer under the shared blanket, grateful for the distraction. After everything that had happened the night before, sitting with Ino, celebrating something joyful, was the grounding she didn't know she needed. Focusing on her friend's happiness was far easier than dwelling on his request. She blew gently on her tea, using the motion to mask the quiet sigh that escaped her lips. They were right back at square one. Sakura had truly thought they were making progress, little things, subtle things. How they cooked together, how he stayed every night not for his sake, but for hers. To chase away her nightmares. The moments had been tender, intimate in a way she had clung to like lifelines. But then came the request. Cold, clinical. Rebuild my clan. No, I love you. Not even an, I care for you. Just a duty. Just a goal. Sakura's chest tightened. Had she imagined it all? Had she only seen what she wanted to see? Was it just wishful thinking? She swallowed hard. It had only been a week. She still had nearly 3 months to make him fall for her, truly fall. She couldn't change him, but she could win his heart. She would win his heart. She had to. The fates had brought her here, under his roof. That had to mean something. She would make it mean something. Sakura. Ino's voice pierced her thoughts, followed by a poke to the forehead. You spacing out on me? I asked you something. Sakura blinked and shook her head, forcing a laugh as she scratched the back of her head and stuck her tongue out playfully. Sorry. Just got a little distracted. Ino's eyes narrowed. She wasn't buying it. Not for a second. She knew a fake smile when she saw one, especially from Sakura. She set her teacup down and gently took her best friend's hands. Sakura, she said, her tone soft but firm. I don't care how good my day's going. What's wrong? She brushed her fingers lightly over Sakura's cheek. Is it Sasuke? Her expression darkened. I swear, if he. It's okay. Sakura cut in quickly, a little too quickly. She kept the smile on her face like it was armor. She couldn't fall apart. Not today. Not when Ino had just gotten engaged. Not when Ino was heading out on a mission in just a few hours and wouldn't be back for days. This time was precious, and Sakura wouldn't ruin it with her own heartache. But her tears betrayed her. Sakura hadn't even realized she was crying until they spilled down her cheeks, warm and uncontrollable. He asked me to rebuild his clan with him again, she whispered, the words tumbling out in broken pieces as she collapsed into Ino's open arms. I told him I loved him, but, her voice cracked. He didn't say it back. Ino's arms tightened around her, her expression thunderous. Heartless bastard, she muttered, feeling Sakura's tears soak into her shirt. Sakura pulled away after a moment, rubbing at her eyes and sniffling. No, she said, placing a hand over her chest. These are my feelings. He doesn't have to return them. He should, Ino snapped. You're living together, sleeping in the same bed. He's not made of stone, Sakura, you've always meant something to him. If he hasn't realized that yet, he's a damn fool. Sakura shook her head slowly. She couldn't afford to believe in maybes anymore. Not with the time running out. He probably only saw her as a comrade. A future co-leader of his clan. Nothing more. And last night only proved it. He didn't love her. Not yet. But maybe, someday. It's okay, Ino, Sakura murmured, more for herself than anyone else. But Ino wasn't convinced. If he doesn't, you're going to have to. It'll be fine, Sakura interrupted, raising her fist with a forced grin. I've got this. I'm still the queen of fist, remember? Ino groaned and rolled her eyes. Whatever you say, she muttered, though the warmth in her voice said she'd follow Sakura into battle any day, especially one of the hearts. Watch it, Naruto shouted, barely sidestepping the crackling edge of Sasuke's chidori. The surge of lightning singed the air as it passed. You trying to kill me or what? I want you to come at me hard, baka. Sasuke snapped back, Mangekyo Sharingan blazing like wildfire in his eyes. Land a damn blow already. Naruto stared at him, wide-eyed and confused. When Sasuke had dragged him out of bed at the crack of dawn for another spar, he'd figured it was their usual no-kill, rough each other up kind of training. But this felt personal, rabid, desperate. I'm not gonna kill you, idiot, Naruto grumbled, blocking a second Chidori strike with a wind-enhanced kunai. What the hell's gotten into you? Something happened to Sakura-chan. Those were the magic words. Sasuke's expression twisted. He formed a rapid series of hand seals, inhaled, and blasted a stream of fire in Naruto's direction. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu. Naruto barely had time to leap out of the way, diving behind a bush. Flames engulfed it, leaving nothing but a smoldering skeleton of branches. Naruto reappeared on a nearby tree branch, watching the wreckage below. Okay, he muttered. Guess that answers that. He thought Sasuke had been getting better. Though maybe the Uchiha had finally stopped carrying the world's emotional constipation on his shoulders. Hell, he'd even shown signs of warmth. Kindness. Progress. Guess that was over. I asked her to rebuild my clan, Sasuke snarled, flicking his Chikudo into his hand as he incinerated what was left of the bush Naruto had been hiding behind. Naruto blinked. That sounds productive. Clearly it wasn't, Sasuke growled. She rejected. You. Sasuke landed on the same branch as Naruto, sword at the ready. She did. Naruto sighed. How'd you ask her? I didn't. Damn, Naruto winced, narrowly dodging a slash. How many times do I have to say this? You always ask a girl. You never demand. Sasuke chased him through the trees, branches snapping and leaves scattering in their wake. All he wanted was to work out the storm inside of him. With fists. With fury. It was the only way he knew how. She said she loved me, Sasuke bit out, landing on a branch just across from him. Naruto threw a punch, which Sasuke countered with a knee. That's good, right? I didn't say it back. Naruto vanished in a puff of smoke, revealing the clone. The real Naruto reappeared behind Sasuke and landed a solid hit on his shoulder. Way to screw it up. He shook his head. Why didn't you just say it? I'm not going to. Sasuke lunged, sword flashing. Naruto backflipped into the canopy above. Then she's not gonna help you rebuild your clan. You love her, right? Sasuke gritted his teeth. He knocked Naruto's next clone into dust and narrowed his eyes. All he had to do was say it. Just once. Then she'd understand. She'd know this wasn't just about his goals or legacy. That this, she, meant more than that. Fuck you, Sasuke muttered as Naruto's fist collided with his gut. Naruto landed beside him, panting. We can role play again if you want. Pretend I'm Sakura-chan and try not to stab me this time. Sasuke shot him a glare so sharp it could have pierced steel. Naruto kept his distance, avoiding eye contact with the Sharingan. Why can't you just admit it? He asked. Start with telling me how you feel about her. Sasuke hesitated. His grip tightened on his sword. He felt ridiculous. What kind of Uchiha needed help declaring love? Sai didn't even feel things, and he'd managed to propose. And here Sasuke was, literally sparring out his emotions like a socially challenged caveman. Idiot, Sasuke growled, twisting away from a Rasengan. I'm not doing that. Too bad, Naruto replied, hopping into a higher branch. It helped me with Hinata. Sasuke frowned. Hinata and Sakura were not the same. Hinata didn't challenge Naruto. Sakura had changed. She had a spine of steel now. She wouldn't take scraps. She deserved more. And he couldn't give her less. He clenched his jaw. Just say it. Just say the words. Why was it so hard? If you want to be a coward, then fine, Naruto's voice broke into his thoughts. But Sakura's not gonna wait forever. She's waited since we were 12. Naruto's temper flared. She loves you, he said flatly. And yeah, she'll wait. But not forever. Not without knowing how you feel. He ducked a kick, flipped over Sasuke, and added, if you keep running from this, she's never going to rebuild your clan with you. I know that already. Sasuke snarled. Then what's the problem? I don't know. Sasuke roared, cutting down the branch Naruto stood on. The blonde landed hard and barely had time to turn before Sasuke's fist cracked into his jaw. Naruto stumbled back, blood at the corner of his mouth. He wiped it away with a grin. We always did our best with our fists. Sasuke didn't argue. Naruto cracked his knuckles, eyes narrowing. Then let's go, Naruto said, a spark of energy racing down his arm. I'll read your heart the old-fashioned way, and figure out what the hell is holding you back. Sasuke's smirk was cold and challenging. Try it, if you can. Haruno Sakura was used to healing Naruto and Sasuke. In fact, patching up her two idiot teammates had become a weird sort of routine. A bruised rib here, a cut lip there, maybe a broken wrist on a rough week. But she didn't mind. In a strange way, it grounded her. It reminded her that no matter how powerful they were, they still needed her. That she was still part of the trio, still essential. But this was not fine. I'm curious, Sakura said, her voice a little too sweet as her eye twitched. She stood between two hospital beds, staring down at the men swaddled head to toe in casts. How exactly did you manage this? She had been mid-operation, elbow deep in a cardiac repair, when a nurse burst into the room, face pale and voice shaking. Sakura had feared the worst. An invasion, a high-level assassination, a failed mission with heavy casualties. But no, it was just them. Naruto groaned from his bed, eyes barely open. Just, heal us already. Sakura folded her arms across her chest, clipboard smacking against her side. Not until you both tell me what the hell happened. Her eyes flicked down to her notes. 4 fractures, multiple cracked ribs, skull trauma, second-degree burns, and chakra depletion levels below functioning threshold. Were you two trying to kill each other? Naruto chuckled nervously. I mean, not kill. Sakura narrowed her eyes. Are you worried Hinata's going to find out? Naruto stiffened. Beads of sweat slid down his temple. Don't worry, Sakura said flatly. Naruto let out a sigh of relief. She's on her way. The color drained from Naruto's face. Sakura smirked. And don't even try to move. Those casts are laced with my chakra. You're not going anywhere until you explain what in the hell you two were thinking. Sasuke, silent until now, continued staring out the window. The tension rolling off of him was thick, suffocating. He wasn't ready to talk. Not to her. Not yet. But Naruto knew. He had seen something, just before they both collapsed from exhaustion and chakra loss. He had glimpsed something inside Sasuke. Not fear of love, as he'd thought. No, something deeper, more fragile, and more dangerous. Sakura sighed and rubbed her temple. Sasuke, she muttered tiredly, Naruto is the future Hokage of Konoha. You're an essential part of the police force, for crying out loud. You're supposed to protect people, not fry them alive. She shifted her glare. And Naruto, you're not exactly blameless. You egged him on, didn't you? Naruto gave a sheepish grin. We're best friends, he offered. This is just how we communicate. To Sakura's shock, Sasuke smirked faintly. Hey. She stared at the two of them, incredulous. I'm surrounded by morons. With a sigh, she spun on her heel. I have 3 more surgeries today, a dead body to cut open, and Hinata's probably going to strangle me for letting her husband get beat up so badly. She stormed toward the door. So sit here and think about what you've done. The door slammed shut behind her. Leaning against the opposite wall was none other than Hitaki Kakashi, Hokage, former sensei, and full-time referee of emotional disaster. You alright? He asked casually, nose buried in Ika Ika paradise. No, Sakura snapped, walking past him. I'm not alright. She tossed her clipboard on a nearby tray. They nearly killed each other. Again. And for what? Some kind of weird therapy session? They'll work it out, Kakashi said, unconcerned. Sakura groaned and ran her fingers through her hair, letting out a scream loud enough to make the nurses in the next hallway jump. I've got too much on my plate to deal with this right now, she muttered, motioning for Kakashi to walk with her. I'll send a nurse to check on them. They just need to talk this out, like adults. She glared. And I swear, if they don't, I'll personally beat the sense into both of them. Kakashi hummed thoughtfully. Think you'll release them later? Sakura rubbed her temples. I'll have to. Hinata won't sleep until she sees Naruto at home, safe and sound. I'll heal them after I'm done with the kid who tried eating his chopsticks. Maybe just heal Naruto, Kakashi offered. Sakura raised an eyebrow. And leave Uchiha-sama to stew in envy. Hard pass. They reached her office. Sakura unlocked the door and stepped inside, shrugging off her white coat. You two had a fight last night, Kakashi said, arms folded. Sakura froze. Her shoulders sagged. How can it be a fight when he doesn't even talk to me? She asked, voice low. What am I supposed to do, Kaka-sensei? He doesn't say anything. She sighed. Just that one line, over and over. Rebuild the Uchiha clan with me. No heart. No feeling. Not even a question. She turned to face him, tired and aching in a way that had nothing to do with her job. I told him I loved him, she admitted, voice breaking slightly. And he couldn't say it back. But he wants a family. Marriage. A future. She shook her head. I can't do it. Not like this. Not without knowing if he even feels anything for me. Kakashi frowned behind his mask. Sasuke had always been a slow learner when it came to emotions, but this was idiotic. He had the girl, the chance, the time, everything. And still he chose silence. Sakura squared her shoulders and forced a smile. Anyway, I've got a kid's stomach to open up. Do you mind watching them for a bit? Just make sure Naruto doesn't piss off Sasuke enough to start round 2. Kakashi gave a mock salute. Sure. Babysitting those two is basically a hobby at this point. As she left the office and disappeared down the hall, Kakashi watched her go, feeling a rare sting of disappointment in his former student. Come on, Sasuke, he muttered under his breath. Don't screw this up. So, out with it, Kakashi said as he settled onto the stool a kind nurse had graciously offered. He crossed one leg over the other and eyed the two broken messes of shinobi lying in their respective hospital beds. Why'd you fight this time? I figured it out, Naruto declared triumphantly, his grin far too smug for someone wrapped in gauze like a human burrito. I figured out what's wrong with Sasuke. Sasuke visibly flinched. For once, words failed him. He shot Naruto with a venomous glare, his mind reeling. Could it be true? Had the idiot really seen through him that easily? The mere idea sent heat rushing to Sasuke's cheeks. This wasn't just embarrassing. This was humiliating. Oh, Kakashi tilted his head, arms folding across his chest. Care to share with your beloved sensei? Sasuke gritted his teeth, gripping the sheets tight enough that his knuckles turned white. He wasn't afraid of love. That would have been laughable. No, this was far worse. This was about vulnerability, about being seen. And Naruto had seen it all. Oh, Kaka-sensei, Naruto chuckled, winking. It's even worse than we thought. Sasuke's heart plummeted. No, he wouldn't dare. Oh really? Kakashi asked, one brow lifting with theatrical patience. Naruto, Sasuke growled, warning etched into every syllable. Don't. Sasuke's got it bad, Naruto chirped. He's head over heels for Sakura-chan. Kakashi blinked slowly behind his mask. He'd assumed as much, everyone had, but hearing it said aloud felt different. More real. So it's not denial, Kakashi murmured, mostly to himself. Just fear. Sasuke stared stubbornly at the ceiling, pretending the world didn't exist. If chakra control could allow him to combust on the spot, he would have done it already. Naruto shrugged, clearly enjoying himself. He's not scared of loving her. He's scared of losing her. The words settled over the room like dust. Soft. Still. True. Sasuke wanted to melt into the bed. Kakashi leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. But Sasuke, you don't even have her. I know. That's the dumb part. Naruto threw his hands up. Well, one half-bandaged arm wiggled weakly in the air. He thinks that if he tells her, he'll lose her. Like somehow, saying it out loud will make it real, and real things can be taken away. Without missing a beat, Sasuke grabbed the glass of water from his side table and hurled it at Naruto's face. Ow, what the hell? Naruto sputtered, soaked and laughed anyway. That's what it is then, Kakashi said softly, nodding to himself. The last time you loved someone, they were taken from you. So now, if you admit it, really admit it, you think you'll lose her too. Sasuke clenched his jaw, shadows flickering in his eyes. Kakashi was too damn perceptive. You think that just because we exchanged a few fucking blows, you know me. He snapped, the fire returning to his voice. But Naruto didn't flinch. He just looked at him. Really looked. It's okay to be afraid of losing love, Sasuke. His voice was quieter now. Gentler. You've already lived through that. More than once. And just like that, the room shifted again. Sasuke's fists trembled in the sheets. Naruto didn't need to elaborate. The phantom ache in Sasuke's chest said everything that needed saying. Love was terrifying. It ripped people apart. It left blood on the floor and silence in its wake. He couldn't do it again. Even if you don't say it, Naruto continued, it doesn't make it any less true. He smiled. Not teasing this time, just sincere. Or any less hard. Sasuke turned his head, looking out the window, the weight in his chest no longer ignorable. The truth had been dragged out into the open, and he had nowhere to hide. Kakashi leaned back, watching him carefully. He wouldn't push. Not now. Not when Sasuke was already on the verge. The Uchiha was quiet for a long time before finally muttering. What kind of flowers does she like? I can't believe Sasuke-sama is here, Sakura heard Sukui whisper just outside her office door. Oh, I know, another voice giggled, Keisha, if Sakura recognized the voice right. She tilted her head slightly, still seated at her desk, ears perked. But you know what they're saying. Sakura rose silently, not a rustle in her long white coat, and made her way to the door. Her hand hovered over the handle. She was about to throw it open and give the nosy kunoichi a piece of her mind. What? What? Sukui urged, full of eager curiosity. Sakura-sama rejected him. Keisha's voice dropped into a dramatic whisper. Now they're saying he's going to ask someone else to rebuild his clan. Sakura froze, her hand resting against the wooden doorframe. Rejected him. She pressed her ear gently to the surface. Sukui gasped. Who? No idea, Keisha said with a giggle. But what other choice does he have? If Sakura-sama won't do it. Sakura turned on her heel, jaw tight, and marched straight back to her desk. Her eyes landed on the small brown paper bag sitting beside a stack of unread reports. Her fingers clenched around it. As expected, just as she'd asked, Hinata had dropped off 4 apples before heading home with Naruto. Sakura stalked back to the door and threw it open with a sharp thud. As she suspected, Sukui and Keisha stood there looking guilty as cats caught in the pantry. Don't you have patience to attend to? Sakura snapped. Yes. They answered in perfect unison, bowing before they scurried away. Sakura sighed and slung the paper bag against her hip. Gossip. Always the damn gossip. Was it too much to ask that her love life not be village entertainment? She strode down the quiet corridor, her sandals clicking softly against the tiled floor. Peeking inside the bag, she counted the apples. Good. Naruto might have been discharged earlier, but Sasuke wasn't going anywhere, not while she still had a bone to pick with him. Literally. Her brows furrowed as memories of the night before flickered through her mind. Could it even be called an argument? Sasuke had mostly stared at her like she'd offended his soul, and Sakura had, well. She'd confessed. Again. Her cheeks heated at the memory. It had been years since she last told him she loved him, and the first time hadn't exactly ended well. He'd left the village immediately afterward. So confessing again had taken courage. She'd been honest, vulnerable. And what had he done? Sakura scowled. He'd turned it into some transactional mission, telling her to help him rebuild his clan, like love was a favor she could grant him out of duty. Not once had he said that he loved her. Not once had he even tried. Well, he could sit in that hospital bed and think about what he'd done. She smirked faintly. After all, she still had 3 months left. 3 months to make him fall for her properly. Reaching the former Hokage's private room, now used for high-profile patients, Sakura pushed open the door and stepped inside. Sasuke was awake. Of course he was. That sharp onyx eye of his locked onto her the second she entered. She almost winced at the intensity. So much for him being asleep. Starting to think I forgot about you? Sakura asked lightly, dragging the stool from the far wall and placing it beside his bed. He didn't respond. He just kept staring. She sweat dropped. Yep. He was pissed. Probably because she discharged Naruto hours ago but kept him overnight. Still, considering how he'd treated her last night, a hospital stay was a mild punishment. She sat down and offered the paper bag like a peace flag. Look, she said, biting her lower lip. I brought apples. Peace offering. He turned his head away sharply, the picture of petty defiance. Sakura puffed her cheeks. This wasn't going at all how she imagined. So, without another word, she pulled out an apple and began peeling it with a small, practiced knife. Her fingers were steady, confident. Years of handling scalpels and kunai had turned the once clumsy motion into an elegant rhythm. The peel curled like ribbon. Do you remember? She asked softly. When we were kids, every time you ended up here, I'd bring apples and force feed you. A small laugh escaped her lips. Did you even like apples? He glanced at her from the corner of his eye. She was almost done slicing the fruit onto a plate. I won't force you this time, she said, her tone gentler now. I just wanted to check on you before I head out for the night. A lie. She had every intention of pulling an all-nighter reviewing charts and prepping for the upcoming flu season. But Sasuke didn't need to know that. He didn't need to know how worried she still was. She slid the remaining apples under the side table and rose to her feet. He hadn't said a word. Stubborn ass. Sakura was halfway to the door when his voice, quiet, low, cut through the air. Sakura. She paused. Didn't turn around. Not yet. Let him look at her. Let him decide if he wanted to keep chasing ghosts, or build something real. She waited. Sorry, he said. Just one word. Not the one she'd hoped for. But the one she needed. Sakura turned, offering a soft smile. Her jade eyes shimmered with something tender, something fragile. Arigato, Sasuke, she replied. Then she stepped out, leaving the Uchiha heir alone with his silence, a plate of apples, and a heartache that wasn't nearly as one-sided as it used to be. Uchiha Sasuke felt thoroughly out of place. The flower shop was awash in soft pastels and sweet floral scents, magnolias, lilies, camellias. All of it felt foreign to him. Delicate, peaceful, a stark contrast to his usual surroundings, and definitely far removed from his comfort zone. To make matters worse, Ino's mother looked like her eyes might pop out of her head. Was it really that strange for him to be standing in Yamanaka Hana? He supposed it was. The last person anyone would expect to be shopping for flowers was Uchiha Sasuke. He was just thankful Ino wasn't around. If she were, news of this little excursion would reach Sakura's ears before he could even hand her the damn plant. And he wanted it to be from him. Not through the village grapevine. He'd been discharged from the hospital earlier that morning, after, persuading one of the med nin to heal him on the spot. No, he hadn't stopped by Sakura's office to say goodbye. He figured she'd kept him there on purpose. A silent punishment for the night before. Fair enough, he supposed. But he wasn't giving up on her. Not yet. Not ever. Kakashi and Naruto had been useless when he asked what her favorite flower was. They'd offered the obvious. Sakura blossoms. Simple. Sweet. Obvious. And it felt right. So here he was, awkwardly standing in a flower shop, trying to express what he couldn't seem to say out loud. Hello, Yamanaka-san said as she approached, her voice uneven. Her smile was tight and unsure. See, can I help you with something, Uchiha-sama? Sasuke lifted a brow. I'm looking for Sakura. She blinked. Oh, I haven't seen her today. Maybe she's still at the hospital. I meant the flower, Sasuke interrupted, turning away to hide the faintest heat rising to his cheeks. Oh, the older woman's face flushed pink. I see. The flower. She laughed nervously. We keep our Sakura trees in the back. Would you like to take a look? Sasuke replied with a short nod. He followed her through the shop, ignoring the quiet gasps and murmurs of customers recognizing him. It irritated him. Did they think he wasn't capable of buying flowers? He had just as much right to be there as anyone else. More so, if it meant getting closer to her. They passed through to the back greenhouse. Rows of floral trees basked in the sunlight that filtered through the glass ceiling. Ino's mother glanced over her shoulder nervously before stopping in front of a tall young man arranging stems at a table. Sai-kun, she called gently. Would you mind helping Uchiha-sama with some Sakura branches? Sai looked up with a spark of amusement in his dark eyes. Ah, traitor, he greeted cheerfully, abandoning his arrangement to saunter toward Sasuke. What can we do for you? The flower, Sai, Yamanaka-san muttered with an embarrassed laugh, patting Sai lightly on the shoulder. Don't be rude. I'll leave you two to it. She vanished quickly, slipping back through the door to the front of the shop, likely relieved to escape the tension. Sasuke eyed Sai warily. You work here now. Sai shrugged. Helps with my art. And Ino insisted I step up while she's gone. He gestured toward the Sakura trees near the back. Come on. You want a branch? Sasuke nodded. I heard what happened yesterday with Naruto, Sai added, holding open the greenhouse door as they stepped outside into the sun-drenched yard. Kakashi said Sakura-san was not pleased. Sasuke grunted. I understand you two were working through some unresolved sexual tension, Sai said with a perfectly straight face. But Naruto is married now. Sasuke's fist thumped firmly against the top of Sai's head before he could finish that thought. Shut it. Sai rubbed his head and pointed toward a tree. That one's blooming nicely. Sakura prefers subtle pinks, not the deep blush variety. He raised a brow. Want to pick it yourself? Without a word, Sasuke stepped forward and began to climb. His boots found purchase against the bark as he worked his way up, eyes scanning branch after branch. The deeper he went, the more he was engulfed in pink. The petals danced gently in the spring breeze. The scent, light, airy, unmistakably Sakura, hit him in waves. It made sense, of course. Sakura visited the shop often, and her scent would linger among the trees. Still, it caught him off guard. He paused for a moment, letting it wash over him. Try not to get a boner up there, Sai called helpfully. My mother-in-law would find that distressing. Sasuke clicked his tongue in annoyance, blocking him out. There, at the very top of the tree, sunlight filtered through a cluster of blossoms more beautiful than any he'd seen before. Their soft pink petals were untouched, glistening slightly with dew. Perfect. Just like her. He reached carefully, fingers brushing over the fragile branch. He broke it gently, mindful not to damage the blooms. As he cradled the branch in his hand, a single petal fluttered loose, catching the breeze. It drifted through the air like a whispered memory before landing, delicately, on his lips. His breath caught. It was just like her kiss. Soft, tender, fleeting. The kind of kiss you had to catch with your fingers, or it'd be gone forever. Simple, yet impossibly rich with emotion. He touched the petal with 2 fingers and let the wind carry it away. That one he could let go. But her? No. He smirked. Letting one flower slip through his fingers was enough for today. As for Sakura, she could try to run. But he was Uchiha Sasuke. And he was done letting her get away. Thank you so much for checking on Naruto-kun, Hinata said, her voice gentle and warm. She leaned over and placed her hand softly on her husband's forehead. He's been like this since he came home yesterday. Just sleeping. Sakura smiled as she folded her arms and tilted her head at the sight. I'm honestly surprised he managed to sleep through the entire checkup, she said with a light laugh. But that's just like him, isn't it? Hinata's soft expression shifted into something deeper, more intimate. It was the kind of smile Sakura was sure only Naruto got to see. A look reserved for the man who had stolen her heart completely. Sakura blushed and turned her face away, hiding a flicker of envy. Naruto had always been a great guy, and once upon a time, she'd hoped he might look at her the way he looked at Hinata now. But life had other plans. Still, she couldn't begrudge Hinata for loving him so fiercely. They were alike in that way, 2 women who would do anything for the men they loved. You'll let me know when he wakes up? Sakura asked, her voice dipping to something softer. Oh, of course, Hinata replied, not taking her eyes off of Naruto. Then, as if just remembering Sakura's presence, she blinked and turned to her friend. Ah, how is Sasuke-kun? I hope he's feeling better. Sakura sighed, rubbing her neck. He left the hospital before I had a chance to check on him myself. One of my subordinates patched him up well enough, apparently. Her lips quivered in amusement. Though, from what I hear, Sasuke might have, used his Sharingan to persuade him. Hinata's sweat dropped. Is that even allowed? Sakura shook her head. Not remotely. But that's Sasuke. She hesitated, glancing at the sleeping Naruto. You don't happen to know why the 2 of them decided to try and kill each other again, do you? Hinata's fingers twitched nervously in her lap. She knew exactly what had happened. Naruto had told her everything after she dragged his beaten, bloody body back home. But it wasn't her story to share. So she stuck with the truth, even if it wasn't the whole truth. Sorry, Sakura-chan, she said softly, her eyes apologetic. Sakura let out a quiet sigh. Figures. She rubbed her temples and shook her head with a half laugh. I'll never understand why those two always have to use their fists to talk things out. Can't they be more civilized? Like me and Ino. Hinata tilted her head curiously. You mean, with hair pulling and shouting matches in the market? Sakura paused. Okay, fair point. She laughed again. Maybe we're not so different after all. After the moment passed, she perked up and tilted her head. How are the festival plans coming along, Hinata? Did the bakery take your order? Hinata's face lit up, her hands clasping in excitement. Why yes. Everything is going smoothly. I'm so relieved. She blushed, fiddling with her fingers as she added, and this year, I'll be wearing the Namikaze kimono. It's the same one Kushina-san wore when she married Minato-sama. Sakura's jaw dropped slightly. Oh wow, Hinata, that's a huge honor. It is, Hinata whispered, her cheeks flushing pink. I had a few alterations made so it can also represent the Hyuga clan. But the base is still Kushina-san's. I want to honor both families when I dance. You're going to look beautiful, Sakura said sincerely, squeezing her friend's hand. Naruto won't know what hit him. Hinata gave a shy smile and glanced again at her slumbering husband. Then, almost bashfully, she looked back at Sakura. Would you like to see it? Sakura's eyes widened in surprise. You'd show me. Hinata gave a small nod and quietly slipped away from Naruto's side. She padded over to one of the two large wooden closets and opened the doors with care. Hidden behind formal Hyuga wear and more casual pieces was a kimono wrapped in protective silk. She brought it out delicately. Sakura stood beside her, eyes wide as she took in the garment. It was exquisite, soft ivory with crimson threading, intricate floral embroidery trailing up the sleeves and hem, and the symbols of the Uzumaki and Namikaze clans sewn into the back with proud care. And there, just below them but no less striking, was the Hyuga clan crest, stitched with the same reverence. It's been passed down, Hinata explained, her voice quiet. And each woman who wears it adds her own family's symbol. Kushina did it to honor her clan, and now, so have I. Sakura swallowed the lump in her throat. Has Naruto seen it yet? Hinata's expression turned secretive, her lips curving into a soft smile. No, I want it to be a surprise, when we perform the flower dance together. Sakura blinked. Wait. You and Naruto are performing? Hinata nodded quickly. It's tradition for a couple to open the Konoha Spring Festival with the flower dance. It's usually performed by two people who are bonded by love. She blushed. This year, Kakashi-sama asked us. Sakura's heart ached, but she managed a smile. He's going to be blown away, Hinata. I promise. Hinata ducked her head, clearly flustered but thrilled. I even sewed the Hyuga crest on myself. Sakura stared. That's amazing. Truly. There was a pause. Then Hinata looked up again, shy but curious. And you? Will you be wearing an Uchiha kimono? Sakura stiffened. She hadn't even thought about it. Her personal kimono had been lost in the apartment fire, and though Makoto had offered to lend her clothes before, Sakura would never ask to wear the Uchiha matriarch's kimono, not something so sacred. That belonged to the family. And Sakura? Well, she wasn't sure where she stood. She laughed awkwardly. I'll be working during the festival. Hinata frowned. What? But, the festival, Sakura-chan, it's the spring festival. You have to come. The hospital will be understaffed, Sakura fibbed, eyes dropping to the floor. It's better if I stay and make sure everything runs smoothly. But, Hinata looked genuinely crestfallen. Naruto and I were looking forward to seeing you there, especially during the flower dance. Sakura tried to smile. I'll watch from the hospital roof. Hinata didn't press, but as Sakura quickly excused herself and walked out of the room, something didn't sit right. She stood in the doorway and watched her friend disappear down the hall. Then her eyes drifted back to her sleeping husband. I think I need to pay a visit to the Uchiha estate, Hinata murmured to herself. So here he was, the great Uchiha Sasuke. Standing outside the altar like a fool, clutching Sakura blossoms in his hand and waiting for Sakura to come out so he could give them to her. He had it all planned. He'd hand them over, she'd squeal, which he'd pretend to hate, and then he'd vanish before she could embarrass him further. There was no way she could misinterpret this gesture. The meaning was clear. He loved her. She'd accept the flowers, understand his intentions, and right then and there, they'd start the long-awaited process of rebuilding the Uchiha clan. Preferably in the bedroom. But Sasuke could wait. He could be patient. No way this could go wrong. Leaning against the wall, he listened as she softly spoke to his deceased family. Her voice was reverent and calm, a stark contrast to the turmoil churning in his gut. He shifted uncomfortably. He hadn't visited the altar once since it had mysteriously appeared in his house after he had returned to Konoha. The whole thing was strange, too strange. He didn't know who set it up, but he hadn't been able to bring himself to sit before those photos and speak like everything was fine. 15 minutes a day wasn't enough time to say everything he wanted to say. Or to apologize for everything he couldn't fix. Still, he had to admit, Sakura had more dedication than he did when it came to honoring his family. It wasn't even her family, but she still knelt before their shrine with the kind of sincerity that made his chest ache. When he looked at their pictures, all he could feel was the tangled mess of grief, rage, and regret. But Sakura, she had no blood-soaked past tying her to the massacre. She could give them the peace he couldn't. He smirked to himself. They weren't married yet, but she was already filling the role so well. Until he could face them himself, she'd pay her respects on both their behalf. The door slid open. Ah, Sakura blinked, startled. Sasuke, what's that in your? He didn't say a word, just let her eyes drift to the delicate pink blossoms in his hand. Her jade gaze widened. Oh, Sasuke, she breathed, reaching for the flowers. Her fingers brushed against his, and he barely suppressed the shiver crawling up his spine. You shouldn't have. This is so wonderful. His feathers fluffed. He basked in the praise, in her admiration, in her presence. Yes, he was amazing. He was a sex god. And now, Haruno Sakura, kindly bow before him and accept his silent proposal. He was ready. So ready. This is the nicest thing I've ever. Oh, Sasuke. He closed his eyes, steeling himself. Was this it? Was she going to say she was sorry for rejecting him in the past? That she was ready to bear his children? Maybe she'd just throw herself into his arms and whisper those long-awaited words, I love you. He was seconds away from pulling her against the wall and getting started on their legacy when. Sasuke, Sakura said softly, cradling the flowers. Arigato. He opened his eyes to her flushed cheeks and grinned. Oh yes, he was nailing this. They'll love these. He froze. Before he could say anything, Sakura lit up. Oh Sasuke, she cooed, motioning him to follow. This is such a beautiful gesture. She beamed. Come. She clapped her hands twice before bowing to his family's photos. Everyone, look at what Sasuke-kun brought you. Sasuke almost tripped over his own feet. She thought the flowers were an offering. A freaking shrine offering. Sakura, ever thoughtful, stepped aside. Go on, she whispered with a wink. It's your turn. I've had enough time with them. She bowed once more and slipped away, leaving Sasuke alone, stunned, and thoroughly betrayed by the Sakura blossoms in his hand. He scowled, stepping in front of the shrine. Fantastic. Just perfect. He clapped his hands twice and bowed stiffly. Look, he muttered under his breath, I know I haven't been around. And I know it probably looks like I brought those flowers for you all. His eyes twitched. But you and I both know they were meant for Sakura. So, if you could just help me out and nudge her in the right direction about rebuilding the clan, that'd be great. He gave one final nod and turned on his heel, fuming. So much for romantic gestures. Strike 1. A big, epic, Uchiha grade fail. Ah, Sakura blinked. You're cooking, Sasuke. He nodded curtly, not looking at her as he washed the rice. It had only been a week of living together, but he was already used to her being here. Eating together had become something of a ritual, something his mother once insisted on. Ninja or not, meals were family time. Need help? She asked, sidling up beside him. He didn't respond, just dumped the water and loaded the rice into the cooker. The sting of earlier still lingered. How could she not realize the flowers were for her? They were Sakura blossoms. Her name. Her flower. His irritation dulled as he caught her trying to reach the cutting board above. Her fingers just brushed the edge. He moved behind her and grabbed it with ease, stepping close enough for her back to meet his chest. For a moment, everything froze. He held it out wordlessly. She accepted it with trembling fingers. Arigato, she whispered. HN, he replied, stepping away, his warmth vanishing from her skin. Chop the mushrooms, onions, and celery. Sakura got to work, and when she was done, she brought the neatly chopped ingredients to him at the stove. She hovered near his shoulder, watching intently. Arigato, Sakura, Sasuke said quietly. She smiled. Helping in the kitchen is important, after all. She paused. Mind if I use some of the rice when it's done? Sasuke raised an eyebrow. Ah, he wasn't sure what she was planning, but she could have the entire rice cooker if it made her happy. He turned back to the stove, checking the miso soup. It was ready, just needed the tofu and vegetables. Stir this, he said, handing her the paddle. As she stirred, he added the tofu. The hot soup splashed up and scalded his hand. Ah, Sakura gasped, immediately dropping the paddle. She reached for his hand without hesitation and brought it to her lips before he could stop her. Her tongue brushed the burn, warm and gentle. His heart nearly stopped. She murmured something about the flavor, pulling away slowly as if savoring the moment. Meanwhile, Sasuke was fighting for composure. He stared at her as she calmly went back to stirring. Was it normal to be jealous of soup? Was he losing it? He stepped to the sink and began washing his hand, scrubbing like it could erase the sensation of her mouth on his skin. He needed to breathe, to think. He was not going to lose control. Then Sakura bent down in front of the cabinets, ass on full display, and he nearly died. Sasuke, she called sweetly. Where are the serving plates? He stormed behind her, yanked the cabinet open, and averted his gaze. Here, he grumbled, ears turning red. Down here. Ah, she said, crouching beside him. Arigato. As she reached in, her shirt dipped just enough to show a teasing glimpse of cleavage. Sasuke clenched his fists and looked anywhere else. When she finally stood and walked away, chipper as ever, he sighed in relief. Cooking, he now realized, was a full contact sport. And Haruno Sakura was going to kill him with kindness, one accidental seduction at a time. Sasuke-kun, Sakura moaned, twisting in the sheets. Please, wait. Sasuke's eyebrow twitched. Sasuke-kun, she breathed again, her fingers ghosting over his thighs, heat pouring from her palms like molten fire. It singed him, branded him, his jaw clenched. These damn nightmares. Her touch was unconscious, but that didn't matter. She was all over him, lost in some subconscious hell, and he was the battlefield she clung to. She didn't even know what she was doing. But his body sure as hell did. The flickers of her skin against his were waking instincts in him he'd buried deep. He growled low in his throat. This was ridiculous. No one touched him there. No one. Not unless he allowed it. Not unless they earned it. The last time someone had tried. Karen, with her teasing grins and unsubtle innuendos. He'd nearly snapped her neck on impulse. A sword to her gut had made the message clear. This territory was sacred, locked, off limits. And yet, Sakura, in the haze of sleep, had breached every damn wall without trying. Her face was pressed to his chest, damp with tears. Her nose nestled into the hollow of his shoulder like it belonged there. She trembled against him, her body folded into his like muscle memory, like she'd done this 1,000 times before. He needed to wake her, but gently. She'd bolt if he startled her, maybe even cry again. He couldn't do what he had done before, couldn't risk pressing his lips to hers and waking her like something out of a fairy tale. Not now. Not when one more taste of her would break whatever restraint he had left. Sakura, he whispered, his voice low, brushing against the shell of her ear like a breeze. Wake up. It's just a nightmare. But she didn't stir. She shifted again, her legs tangling with his, her hands sliding up over the ridges of his abdomen as if searching for something to anchor her. His Sharingan activated without him meaning to, more reflex than decision. He was done being ignored. Sakura, he said again, rougher this time. Wake up. Her eyes snapped open, wide, wild, filled with terror. They locked with his, and his chest tightened. A final tear streaked down her cheek. He stared at her, the guilt like acid in his gut. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Or a monster. Me, he realized. She'd seen me. Was it the memory of his hand around her throat? Of that moment when she'd stood between him and death and called it love? Or maybe it was the time she tried to kill him, trembling hands unable to finish the job. He should have noticed sooner. Should have known. She'd been having these nightmares for days now, each one leaving her more exhausted, more fragile. If he really wanted to prove he was worthy of her, he needed to pay attention. He needed to be better. Sasuke exhaled slowly, fingers threading through her sweat-dampened hair. I'll get you some water. He started to shift away, but her arms locked around his torso. She pressed herself to his back, trembling, clutching him like he was the last real thing in her world. Don't go, she choked out, her voice raw, barely a whisper. Don't leave me. He froze. She was warm against him, barely dressed, every line of her body molded to his. Her chest pressed into his back, soft and vulnerable, her breath hot against his spine. She wasn't begging him with lust, she was begging him not to vanish again. His resolve cracked. He looked over his shoulder and met her eyes again. Wide, scared, trusting. He remembered that look. She'd worn it at the Chunin exams, when his power flared and bloodlust consumed him. Back then, everyone had pulled away, everyone but her. She'd reached for him, held him, even when he didn't deserve it. And now, even after everything, she still wasn't afraid of him. He didn't say a word. He slid back into the sheets, allowing her to hold him. Her arms didn't let go, like if she loosened her grip, he'd vanish. Don't go, Sakura whispered again, her breath brushing his collarbone. Sasuke's body was tense, but he nodded. Ah. Her grip softened just slightly, and she relaxed. That single syllable from him, soft, solid, was all she needed. But he saw the truth in her eyes. The doubt. The silent ache. She didn't believe him. Not fully. Not yet. Deep down, she feared the moment he'd walk out again. Just like the night he left her on that bench beneath the stars, her heart in pieces at her feet. She still thought he'd leave. But she was wrong. He had a reason now. A new purpose. A new goal. And unlike the revenge that once consumed him, this time, he wasn't going to fail. Sasuke leaned in, pressed his lips to her temple, and whispered the words she should have heard years ago. Quote. I'll stay. Uchiha Sasuke wasn't one to sleep in. In fact, he never slept in. Discipline was ingrained in his bones. He was always up before dawn, already in the middle of stretching or brewing tea before Sakura even stirred under the covers. So when sunlight brushed against his eyelids, and he awoke alone, confusion rippled through him. Sakura was gone. His dark brows furrowed slightly. The silence of the room felt too hollow without her even breathing beside him. It hadn't been a bad night. No, far from it. For once, he had slept soundly, her warmth wrapped around him like a cocoon against the constant tension in his chest. He allowed himself that rare comfort. But the one thing he had hoped to wake up to, her still in his embrace, had slipped through his fingers. He rolled over and pulled her pillow to his chest, burying his face in the fabric. He inhaled deeply, the scent of her still lingering, soft, clean, subtle. Like Sakura blossoms kissed by morning dew. Just faint enough to be maddening. His breath hitched. The smell was too much. Too personal. Too hers. He turned his face away, smirking despite himself. God, he was acting like a lovesick academy student. Still, something nagged at him. She'd left before him. That never happened. Normally, Sakura was draped across his chest until he carefully peeled her off to avoid waking her. She slept like someone trying to make up for years of nightmares, and lately, that hadn't felt so far from the truth. Maybe that was it. Last night had left her vulnerable, fragile in a way that made his protective instincts flare. But for her to slip away without him even realizing, that was unlike him. His senses were never dulled. Not even in sleep. Sasuke scowled and glared at the pillow in his arms like it had betrayed him. He couldn't afford to let his guard down. Not around anyone, not even her. She was still a kunoichi. Letting down his defenses was dangerous. Foolish. But then again, so was caring for someone like her. His glare softened. He could still see the image of her tear-streaked face pressed to his chest, her voice trembling as she pleaded with him not to leave. That raw desperation, he'd felt it too. The fear of losing something precious. Of messing it all up. He swung his legs over the edge of the bed and ran a hand across the back of his neck, working out the stiffness. Sleeping next to her might relax his heart, but it wrecked his spine. He sighed. Her body against his had made him ache in more ways than one. The temptation had been unbearable. Had he turned to face her, just once, he might have lost all restraint. But Sasuke couldn't afford to screw this up again. He had no experience navigating relationships. And relationships required tact, strategy, the kind of finesse he used in battle. Something bigger. Something that told her she wasn't just a passing interest. He stretched, feeling the tightness in his shoulders ease, and stood. He'd figure it out. He was an Uchiha, after all. His feet carried him through the hallway, past the living room and into the quiet altar room. Sasuke had never been the type to pray or speak to the dead. If anything, he carried them with him silently, like shadows stitched into his skin. But today, he felt drawn in. Maybe she had something to do with that. He stepped inside and knelt before the altar. He glanced up at the framed photos, his father, mother, and Itachi. They stared back with solemn eyes. In front of each image, on delicate porcelain plates, were freshly made rice balls. He blinked. His brow furrowed. Sakura had said something last night, about wanting to use the leftover rice. So this was what she meant. He picked one up and turned it over in his hand, stunned at the care she had taken. Simple, yes, but deliberate, intentional. She wasn't even his, and yet here she was, honoring his family every single morning like they were hers too. Sasuke let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding and smiled, slow and genuine. He pressed a palm to his face, his fingers resting against his temple in a gesture that mirrored Itachi's old habit. A rare laugh escaped him, soft, almost broken. Sakura really was something. He placed the rice ball back gently, his laughter fading into a warm exhale. He looked upward, toward the ceiling. How could he ever let her go? She knew him better than anyone ever had. Better than he knew himself. Even now, she was paying respects to ghosts he barely acknowledged. No expectations. No drama. Just quiet reverence. And he had the audacity to hesitate. His expression hardened. No more hesitation. He clenched his fists at his sides. He wasn't going to let her slip through his fingers like the rest of his past. Not this time. He would learn. He would change. He would become the man worthy of her love, even if he couldn't say the words out loud. Not yet. He'd show her. In every action. In every moment. In every breath. Because Uchiha Sasuke wasn't a man of flowery speeches. He was a man of action. And Uchiha Sasuke always got what he wanted. Haruno Sakura felt a sudden chill slide down her spine. She paused mid-step, glancing behind her with a slight frown. The hallway of the hospital was empty, the soft hum of chakra monitors buzzing faintly in the distance. That was odd. A premonition, or maybe, someone was thinking about her. Sakura-chan, Naruto whined from his seat on the exam table, arms crossed and legs swinging. I'm fine, okay. You didn't have to drag me in here like I'm dying or something. Sakura's temple throbbed. She exhaled sharply through her nose. Just sit still and let me inspect you, damn it. She unraveled the bandages around his ribs with practiced fingers, her touch turning gentle as she brushed against darkening bruises. You're healing well. Naruto pouted like a scolded child. Then why don't you just finish healing me all the way? Then you wouldn't have to see me every day. Sakura smirked, eyes glinting with mischief. Because some things need to heal naturally, Naruto. She tapped his forehead. Besides, it's punishment. Naruto raised a brow. Punishment for what? For not telling me what you and Sasuke were arguing about, she said sweetly, and Naruto immediately groaned. He scratched his cheek with a sheepish grin. On one hand, he wanted to reassure her, Sasuke definitely had feelings for her. The fact that he'd cornered every male member of Team 7 for advice. Clear sign. On the other hand, Sasuke needed to get there on his own. It wasn't Naruto's story to tell. Sorry, Sakura-chan, he said, grinning nervously as she pressed lightly on each bruise, her chakra flaring briefly with a soft green glow to check for bone alignment. But I can't tell you. I figured, she said with a sigh, wrapping the bandages neatly. A secret between friends, huh? He nodded. Yup. She paused as she fastened the last strap. Just tell me one thing. Naruto looked up, meeting her eyes. You two worked it out, right? He rubbed the back of his neck. Not exactly. Her smile wavered. What do you mean? It's something he's gotta figure out himself, you know. I can't force him to say things he's not ready to say. She nodded quietly, eyes on her hands. Right. A pink tint dusted her cheeks. If there's anything I can do to help him, will you tell me? Naruto's eyes widened a little. She still loved Sasuke. That much had never changed. But the hesitation in her voice, the slow pace of their relationship, it all made Naruto worry. I think that's something you need to say to him, Naruto said gently. Sakura gave a small, tired laugh. He won't listen. He will, Naruto said firmly. She looked at him, surprised by the conviction in his voice. He always listens, he added. Maybe he didn't respond, but Sasuke heard her. Naruto was sure of it. Sakura's gaze dropped. She wanted to believe that. But silence didn't always mean understanding. You'd tell me, though, right? She asked, pushing again. Naruto sighed. Yeah, I'd tell you. Then, a little softer. He's treating you right, yeah. She hesitated. Well, he hasn't tried to kill me lately, so that's something. She gave a dry laugh, then added, I just feel like we're stuck. Like I'm not getting through. I even asked Kurenai-sensei about seduction missions. Kaka-sensei is not sending you on one. Naruto practically shouted. Sakura blinked, startled. I wasn't asking you to. He groaned and slumped back, rubbing his face. Nope. Not happening. Hinata, are you? Absolutely not. Sakura raised a brow. Overprotective much. It's not that, he grumbled. Okay. Maybe it is that. But also, Sasuke would kill me. Naruto shivered visibly at the thought. He'd seen Sasuke mad. He lived through Sasuke's madness. No way was he triggering that again. So, What? You asked Kurenai about seduction stuff for Sasuke Tem? Naruto asked skeptically, trying to mentally bleach the image from his brain. Sakura said casually. She gave me some pointers. Naruto burst out laughing. Sakura-chan, please. Sasuke being seduced. He wiped tears from his eyes. Sakura's eyes twitched. Was that supposed to be funny? You don't think I can do it? She asked dangerously, cracking her knuckles. No, that's not what I meant. Naruto flailed. I just mean, you might need to be, obvious. Like, really obvious. Hinata practically had to throw herself at me. Sakura flicked his forehead. That's because you're an idiot. Oi. Sakura chuckled and leaned against the desk. Hinata told me you two are doing the flower dance together at the Konoha Spring Festival. Naruto puffed out his cheeks. Yeah, I keep stepping on her toes, though. Sakura giggled. That's still better than last year. You set Tsunade Shisho on fire, remember? Naruto winced. I told her not to wear something flammable. She's wearing a fireproof kimono this year, Sakura deadpanned. Smart. Naruto grinned. Hinata's already banned me from being near open flames. I've been put on fire watch probation. Good. Sakura said with a mock serious nod. The village is still recovering from last year's fireworks disaster. They shared a laugh, the mood lightening. Sakura glanced out the window, the late afternoon sun spilling golden light across the room. Her heart felt heavy, but lighter too. Naruto didn't give her answers. But he gave her hope. And sometimes, that was enough. Uchiha Sasuke's eyebrow twitched ever so slightly. Seated primarily across from his desk was none other than the Uzumaki bride herself, Hinata, her hands folded neatly in her lap, a demure smile gracing her lips. But Sasuke knew better. That smile wasn't innocent. It was the kind that clearly meant she wanted something. So he waited. He could be patient. After all, this was his office, and she had come to him. Finally, Hinata spoke, her voice soft but steady. Sasuke-kun, do you realize that the Konoha Spring Festival is only a few days away? Sasuke smirked. How could he forget? The entire police force was buzzing with preparations, coordinating crowd control, organizing security for the evening festivities, overseeing fireworks safety. And, of course, ensuring that Naruto didn't accidentally set something, or someone, on fire again. He hummed, flipping through a case file. I'm assuming you're attending, Hinata said, her tone politely expectant. Wouldn't miss it, he replied. Watching the idiot make a fool of himself is practically tradition. Hinata's sweat dropped. While she didn't usually appreciate people poking fun at her husband, she had come to accept that the sharp banter between Naruto and Sasuke wasn't rooted in meanness. It was something deeper, rough-edged affection masked in sarcasm. I showed Sakura my kimono yesterday, she continued, her gaze dipping slightly. She really seemed to love it. Naruto hasn't seen it yet, so I'm looking forward to surprising him. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. She was stalling, deliberately dancing around the reason she was here. And while he appreciated the calm grace Hinata brought into any room, he wasn't fond of people taking too long to get to the point. Then her voice dropped lower. Do you realize that all of Sakura's things burned in the fire? Sasuke finally set the file down, leaning back in his chair. There it is. I'm aware, he said coolly. She doesn't have a kimono to wear, Hinata continued, fidgeting with her fingers. And she's planning to spend the entire festival day working in the hospital. Sasuke's brow twitched. That sounded like Sakura. Proud, stubborn, responsible for a fault. And though she'd never admit it, he knew she felt displaced, uprooted by the fire, clinging to work as a way to avoid being seen as vulnerable. Hinata looked at him again. I think, you understand what I'm trying to say, Sasuke-kun. He stared at her, then allowed a rare, small smile to pull at his lips. Ah, Hinata blinked in surprise. That smile, soft, sincere, wasn't one she'd seen from him before. And she knew, instinctively, it wasn't for her. It belonged to someone else. Someone he'd once pushed away, and now, maybe, was starting to reach for again. She understood. She remembered all the times she doubted Sasuke's ability to care deeply. But Naruto had always told her, he just doesn't know how to show it yet. And now, she was starting to see the truth in those words. I'll expect to see her at the festival then, Hinata said as she stood, smoothing her skirt. Sasuke rose as well, out of respect. Not because she was the future Hokage's wife, but because she was his best friend's partner, and more than that, because she had quietly done something kind for someone he cared about. He walked around his desk and opened one side of the double doors for her. As she passed, she paused and looked up at him. You know, Sasuke-kun, I think you should smile more often. Her voice wavered, shy but sincere. You look very handsome when you do. Sasuke smirked and leaned down slightly. Don't let Naruto hear you say that. He might get jealous. Hinata paled. Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant. He gave her a look. Dry, amused. Hinata blinked. He was teasing her. Teasing, just like he did with Naruto. Was this Sasuke's version of letting someone in? Thanks, Hinata, he added as she stepped into the hall. She turned to glance back at him, her smile blooming warmly. You're welcome. And as she walked away, she carried with her the hope that maybe, just maybe, Sasuke and Sakura would be all right. Oh, Sakura groaned as she flopped down onto the stool at Ichiraku Ramen, limbs heavy and soul completely depleted. That's it. No more operations. I'm done. Finished. Dead to the world. She let her head thunk dramatically onto the counter with a loud sigh. Damn Ino and her stupid mission. Truthfully, Sakura hated admitting how much she relied on Ino. Whenever her fellow kunoichi left on assignment, it felt like a critical piece of her team went missing. Surgeries became 10 times harder. Check-ins became chaotic. And the junior medics suddenly couldn't tell a scalpel from a kunai. Yes, Sakura could handle it all on her own, she had, many times, but should she have to? Absolutely not. She was the head of the hospital, not its overworked punching bag. Sakura. Tuki greeted her cheerfully. What can I get you? One large bowl of ramen, she mumbled, voice muffled by the counter. And make it fast, please. Before I collapse and never wake up. Coming right up. He laughed, already bustling into the kitchen. Sakura groaned again, forehead still resting on the cool surface of the counter. Her chakra reserves were shot, her patience even worse. If people just got their damn checkups like they were supposed to, before and after missions, maybe she wouldn't have to reattach tendons like it was a hobby. And why did every fresh intern act like she was speaking a foreign language when she gave orders? She clenched her fists. Maybe next time she'd just scream her instructions into the void. Haruno-san. A voice asked hesitantly. Sakura turned her head just enough to see who had dared interrupt her spiral. Tamari stood nearby, brows raised, concern on her face. Oh, Tamari-san. Sakura straightened up awkwardly, brushing hair from her face. Great. Nothing like being caught mid-breakdown. How's your adjustment to Konoha going? Settling in okay? Tamari smiled, taking the seat beside her. Yeah, it's just weird. I got so used to following Kankuro and Gaara everywhere. It feels strange not having them around. Sakura nodded knowingly. Moving to a different village is hard, especially when your family's not nearby. Tamari scratched her head sheepishly. It's a little harder since Shikamaru isn't around right now either. She glanced down at her stomach, then back up at Sakura, suddenly looking bashful. Ah, right. That's actually why I was looking for you. I need to schedule an exam. Sakura blinked. Oh, she asked, already half reaching for her mental clipboard. Tamari saw the exhausted medic's face pale in horror and quickly waved her hands. Not now. Later. I swear. Sakura sighed, covering a yawn with her hand. A routine checkup. Did you already have one before leaving Suna? I did, Tamari nodded. But, this isn't a routine one. Sakura frowned, immediately alert. What's wrong? Do you need blood work? A scan? Tamari shook her head, chuckling. No, no, nothing's wrong. She leaned in conspiratorially, holding a hand up to block her mouth. I'm pregnant, she whispered with a grin. Can you imagine? Sakura squealed, smacking Tamari's shoulder with joy. Are you serious? That's amazing. She paused, 1,000 questions rushing in. So, Shikamaru knows. Of course. Tamari laughed. And Gaara, Kankuro. Tamari's grin dimmed. Ah, not yet. Sakura smiled softly. How far along? About a month, Tamari said, voice quieter now. I wanted to wait until I got here to tell Gaara and Kankuro. They'd flip if they knew I traveled so far while pregnant. Sakura arched a brow. It's not ideal, especially with harsh conditions, but early travel isn't the worst thing. Tamari visibly relaxed. Thanks. I was worried I messed something up already. You haven't been lifting anything heavy, have you? Not that you can't handle it, but it's better to take it easy. Shikamaru's been doing that, Tamari assured her. Even Kakashi and Sasuke helped us move some boxes the other day. Sakura blinked. Sasuke. Tamari tilted her head. Yeah, he was there. We invited him to stay for dinner, but Kakashi said he had to leave. Sakura blinked again, slower this time. Sasuke. Helping people move. That was new. He was always reserved, deliberate. Helpful only when it suited him, or when it aligned with his internal moral compass. But showing up to assist in moving furniture. It tugged at something tender inside her. That's surprising, she said softly. Tsuki placed her ramen in front of her. Sakura murmured a thank you, eyes distant. I hear you and Uchiha have a thing going on, Tamari said casually, already halfway through her noodles. Sakura froze, then promptly shoved her face into her bowl. He asked me to rebuild his clan, she mumbled between sips. Tamari choked on her pork. I'm sorry, what? She wheezed, wiping her mouth. That's how he propositioned you. Make babies with me and restore my bloodline. That's not romance, that's livestock management. Sakura laughed, nearly snorting her broth. I turned him down, she admitted. And we're still friends. Friends who lived together after a failed baby proposal. Tamari stared. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I know, Sakura laughed. It's weird. The whole situation is weird. Tamari was quiet for a beat, then gave her a look of genuine concern. Well, if you ever need a night away from that walking contradiction, she said gently, my place is always open. Sakura smiled warmly, touched. She leaned in close, whispering behind her hand. Thanks, Mama. Tamari immediately smacked her upside the head. Cut it out. Uchiha Sasuke had never been a fan of pets. Animals, in general, weren't really his thing. Dogs were more Kakashi's style. Frogs, loud, ridiculous things, were unmistakably Naruto's. And slugs. Sasuke visibly shuddered. Those slimy, regenerative beasts were a Sakura specialty, and just thinking about them made his skin crawl. If he had to claim a creature, it would be snakes. Cool, calm, collected, calculating in every movement. Strategic. Quiet. Unbothered. Just like him. Which made it all the more ironic that he now found himself with Haruno Sakura curled up in his lap, fast asleep and purring like a damn cat. And yet, he didn't mind. No, he liked it. His hand moved instinctively, combing gently through her soft pink hair as her breath fanned lightly over his abdomen. She was practically draped over him, the occasional whimper escaping her lips as she clutched the fabric of his pants in both fists like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Sasuke exhaled through his nose, the corners of his mouth twitching. Maybe, just maybe, the idea of a pet wasn't so bad, if she was the one. Scattered paperwork littered the bed around them, forgotten for now. A low lamp burned on the nightstand, casting a soft amber glow that flickered against the planes of her face. He hadn't meant to stay up this late, but she'd fallen asleep clinging to him, and something in him refused to move. He didn't get moments like this often, these quiet, vulnerable glimpses of her. Not when she was awake. Awake, Sakura was strong, composed, and careful with the way she loved him. She held back now. He'd made sure of that. But asleep, she sought him like he was home. He glanced at the clock. 3 hours past his usual bedtime. He was supposed to be on the night shift, but he'd traded it. After what happened the other night, coming home to find her curled up, teary-eyed and trembling, he decided never again. She said she'd had a nightmare. About him. That had haunted him more than he let on. His fingers didn't stop stroking her hair as she stirred slightly in her sleep, a faint whimper slipping past her lips. Instinctively, he tightened his hold, pulling her closer. His hand never stopped moving. Gentle, reassuring, steady. Was this what his mother used to do for him? A strange warmth bloomed in his chest, catching him off guard. He sat back slightly, letting memory wash over him like a wave he hadn't realized he missed. There had been a lullaby, something faint, simple, tender. Makoto used to hum it when he was small, when the world felt scary and too big for his little hands to hold. His throat vibrated as he began to hum it, low and soft. The sound seemed to soothe her immediately. Her brow, once furrowed, began to smooth out. Her hands relaxed just a bit, though they still clung to him like he was her anchor. Her head, resting partially on a forgotten stack of mission files, tilted further into his lap, and she let out a quiet sigh. Sasuke looked down at her with something close to awe. This wasn't the loud, impulsive girl who used to follow him around like a lovesick puppy. This wasn't the child who once would have said yes, without hesitation if he'd asked her to rebuild the Uchiha clan. That girl was gone. In her place was this woman, strong, capable, impossibly brave. A medic who saved lives with bare hands and broken sleep. A kunoichi who fought side by side with legends. A woman who chose to love him still, despite everything he'd done. Sasuke exhaled slowly. She was worthy. Beyond worthy. And somehow, she chose him. He frowned, heart twisting. Did he deserve her? Her cheek brushed against his bare abs again, and he tensed. This wasn't the weak girl from Team 7. This was a warrior. His equal. No. More than that. The strongest person he knew. When had it changed? When had he changed? Somewhere between betrayal and redemption, between exile and homecoming, his heart had begun to thaw. Maybe he had loved her even then, in his own broken, buried way. But revenge had drowned out anything gentle, and by the time he could feel again, she'd already been waiting for him on the other side. Could he really love her now? Could he let her in? He wasn't sure. But he wanted to be sure. Sakura murmured in her sleep, Sasuke-kun. His breath hitched. It was worth a shot. If he let fear hold him back now, he'd lose her. And that wasn't an option. Not when she was right there, in his arms. Not when he was so close to understanding what it meant to be loved, and to love in return. No. Sasuke clenched his jaw. He would not let cowardice win. He would not wear fear like armor any longer. He needed her. And maybe, just maybe, if she still needed him, too, they could build something more than a clan. Something real. Something lasting. And that terrified him more than anything he'd ever faced on the battlefield. But it also made him feel alive. And for the first time in a long, long while. That was enough. Thanks for watching.